We're going to have a booming country. We're going to have a booming
We're hearing
country.
the Friday night weave from the President of the United States, who is taking questions at the White House regarding the intervention of the Supreme Court, declaring as impossible now to conduct, unconstitutional, his tariff plan. As you heard him say, he says the justices are a disgrace to our nation, a court swayed by foreign interests, a court, I have to tell you, that is more Republican than it is Democrat. But the President of the United States is flailing around. He's clearly angry. He is clearly frustrated. And although he is increasingly sounding like Grandpa Simpson, the worry here is that because of this ruling, he lashes out to make a point about what he sees as his degree of power, his unquestioned right, he said, to destroy foreign countries. And as you heard him announce, a 10% global tariff is going to apply on top of the tariffs that currently exist, which for Britain would mean the possibility of 20% tariffs being applied. Simon Marks is LBC's Washington correspondent. Simon picked the bones out of that.
Well, Tom, I think it's important to underscore that, first of all, what we have just listened to is President Trump declaring war on the Supreme Court. We've all wondered, ever since he returned to the White House in January of last year, when would the moment of breach come with the judicial branch of government? And it's come today. The President of the United States describing members of the Supreme Court, in essence, as traitors to the United States, because the majority of them, 6-3, have voted to reject his decision, which they say is unconstitutional, to use emergency law to impose his tariffs on all the country's trading partners last year. Now, remember, what the Supreme Court has done today is reaffirm that the right to impose and regulate tariffs does not sit with the President of the United States. It sits with Congress. And Donald Trump could react to this ruling by the Supreme Court to say, right, I'm going to draft a whole set of legislative plans here. We're going to impose the tariffs, but we're going to do it the proper way, which is to get congressional support for the initiative that I want to see in place. He is rejecting that path completely and insisting here that he and only he has the right to impose tariffs, that he's going to keep all of the tariffs that he's already imposed, that the Supreme Court today found unconstitutional, in place. That, of course, is going to face immediate legal appeals and will be overturned. And to kind of safeguard himself, he's going to impose that additional 10%, which he can only keep in place for 150 days under the law. If he doesn't go and get congressional backing for that 10%, that won't be able to stay on the books 151 days from now. All of this coming as the clock is ticking on two major events. His State of the Union address next Tuesday night. This has been a disaster for him, especially because he'll be coming face to face at the State of the Union with the Supreme Court justices, including 3 Republicans, the Chief Justice of the United States, John Roberts, Neil Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett, that he has basically described as traitors to the nation today. And then in 5 weeks' time, March 31st, he's off to China. And the key issue that he's due to talk to President Xi Jinping about is trade. And, of course, all his threats to impose tariffs on China now suddenly are in abeyance as a result of the Supreme Court ruling. If you believe that the Supreme Court still has authority, what Donald Trump is saying tonight is he's challenging the Supreme Court. He's going to war with the third branch of government, having already, unconstitutionally on tariffs, done an end run around Congress.
And he's being hemmed in, isn't he, on his designs of an economic policy that he says would make America great again, whether it's from the Supreme Court or, who knows, later down the line, Congress, if indeed that 151st day comes around, Simon, and he needs to get congressional sign-off. And in the background, of course, lurking somewhere are the midterms, where he may well be hemmed in even further.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the midterm campaign, of course, accelerates with every passing day, and the idea that members of Congress are going to be up for election, are going to be eager to march into the lobbies and back a 10% tariff, given that we all know, even though the president denies it, that 90% of the costs of the tariffs are being borne by American consumers at the cash registers. That's expecting a heck of a lot from Republican lawmakers. Remember, we're going to have 1/3 of the Senate and the entire House of Representatives up for grabs in November. But this is also indicative, as you were saying, Tom, of a president of the United States who will brook no limits on his own executive authority. And I think there will be many political analysts looking hard at what he had to say there about the Supreme Court. He's absolutely ashamed of them. The justices that voted against him are a disgrace to our nation. He even suggested that they had been swayed by outside foreign influencers, and that in some way they were in hoc to foreigners interfering in the affairs of the United States. That is very, very dangerous language to be coming from a president of the United States who continues to undermine public confidence in the integrity of America's electoral system, and, as we've all seen on the streets of Minneapolis and other cities across the country, has not hesitated to deploy military force to try and impose his policies even when that has cost the lives of American citizens who have been killed by members of his federal law enforcement agencies. So we are, as ever, wandering down a very dark path here.
Simon, really appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. Simon Marks, LBC's Washington correspondent.